So I showed off the slow beating Trunkheart team using Sir Nicholas, I think, in it. Basically making everybody go really slow, one turn duration, right? And staying unkillable for the duration. Well, I was thinking, because that team was based off the Tower Skull Crusher team, could I do it with actual Skull Crusher in the team? I think we can, and I'm going to try and show you that today. Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. We are on the test server. We're still looking at Emic Trunkheart and unkillable teams we can build with them. This is going to be the slow beating Trunkheart team, which I actually have on the website. So if you're wanting to know about it or try looking at all the different variations, because there are a lot of them, definitely go to the website. I try to put as many specifics as I can. It's an incredibly long list of text going in there to try and make it as clear as possible, depending on the champions and the gear and all that stuff that you're using. It's tricky though. It is definitely tricky utilizing all the different variations, but this is an old, very old tune. Tower Skull Crusher been around for a long time. And it's very easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's very successful. There just comes some stun targeting issues that you have to look out for. Affinity is always going to play a factor as well. But there are, of course, other champions that you can use if you need to. And so, you know, I figured I'm going to have another video talking about how we can use Taurus in this team as well, in a different kind of variation. There's other champions that are obviously have unkillable, also that you can definitely, you know, mess around with and try to do it. As long as they can put it on themselves in a 4 or 3 turn cooldown, it should be viable. The trick is obviously dealing with affinity and dealing with the stun. Thankfully, Skull Crusher has that passive ability that removes the stun from himself, so you don't have to worry about that, especially with the cooldown of Emic. It's gonna still be a 3 turn duration on all his skills. So he needs to take the stun, and if he does, everything should work just perfectly for us. The key is, of course, dealing with affinity then. So there's a few ways to do it. You can bring in a 2-turn debuff blocker, a 1-turn debuff blocker, or a cleanser. Well, in my original video, I showed a cleanser with Doom Priest. I figured this one I can show you with Grizzled Jarl, a 1-turn debuff block champion, and we can see how viable this is. It's definitely going to be a little bit, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, guys. Just throw that out there. These things aren't always going to be perfect. It definitely takes some adjustment to make everything work. But I think this should. I've been messing around the calculator, trying to get it to work just so. And I think we figured it out. Now, there's a couple issues. One, I'm going to show you this team. We're actually going to do this on Nightmare because I haven't shown a Nightmare run. And I figure some of you are going to want to see that. But depending on what you're bringing in, whether it's a cleanser or a debuff blocker, it's definitely going to change the speeds you actually need to use to make it work, because Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare don't always work at the same speeds. It can get a little tricky, and bringing in a 1-turn debuff block champion or affinity can definitely make it trickier. Now, we're not going against Spirit, so that makes things a lot easier, but I'm going to run this as if we were. And so kind of keep that in mind, so this can be a little guidepost if you need to do that. Okay, forgive me for rambling and talking over myself. I've been up all night trying to build this team, working on another team, and I got another one I'm trying to do. So my head's a little bit spacey. That said, let's look at the champions. Let's look at like how I've got this set up so I can walk you through this so you understand how it works. It's going to be very important. So in the setup here, right, we've got Emic, and we're going to open up with, I forgot I actually have to set this up for Ultra Nightmare here. So we're going to open up with the A1, A2 or A3, then A2, right? This is on Nightmare, so it's a little bit different from Ultra Nightmare, and everything's kind of delayed 1 turn, right? Skull Crusher, we're opening with the A1, then we're going into his A2. Ragnar should be fine. We're just prioritizing the A3, turning off the A2. Now, Ragnar's in here because he brings a leech debuff, and like I said, everybody needs to heal up. Now, leech is a really risky way to go, because if for any reason that debuff falls off and our champs don't heal up, they might end up taking the stun. So we're gonna live on the wild side a little bit. This run might not succeed, but hopefully it lasts long enough to be able to show you guys quality run, and you can see that it is viable. And then we got Celestia, hopefully just extend those leech debuffs if they ever land, right? And of course, Grizzled Jarl, who's going to give us that block debuff ability. Now, he also has a 2-turn increased defense buff. If the timing of things is slightly off, that can really throw things off in, affect who gets the stun. In this run on Nightmare, it won't have an impact whatsoever. On Ultra Nightmare, it's one of those things where you might have to manual the first turn or two because the stun might end up going to Emic, and that could be bad news. So there are ways around that. I kind of showed that actually in my original video on this. So that should be pretty straightforward. Now, how are we healing, right? Well, Skullcrusher, I have a regen set on, and that's it. And I don't think that's enough, but we're going to try it first. He's got a regen set, and he's got the mastery in the defensive tree that adds to the healing by 5%. So hopefully that'll be enough so that he's still a viable stun target, because the clan boss won't stun somebody if they have unkillable on themselves and they have less than, from my understanding, less than 16% HP. With Skullcrusher's mastery and his gear set should be between 15 and 16%. So I'm hopeful the threshold is under what he's at, not a flat 16%, but we're going to find out right here. Ragnar, obviously with the leech, I don't have anything special. Thalesia does have lifesteal from a previous build I did, so she'll be healing up, but Grizzled Jarl doesn't. So Grizzled Jarl and Ragnar are really going to be relying on that leech. And then very last, we have Emic. And Emic, I do have in a regen and immortal gear, so he should always have more HP than Skullcrusher regardless, so he won't be the stun target. So this is the idea. So we're going to go ahead and jump in here, and we're going to see if this works. All right, going in here on Nightmare, right? We get all these little delays. Because Nightmare, we're faster than we would be on Ultra Nightmare, everybody kind of goes first, so we have to bake in an extra turn a lot of times. That's the case right now. So there you go. You see that unkillable go out. Everybody's going here. There goes the unkillable from Skullcrusher as well. And there's a block debuff. So now if there was an affinity spirit slow debuff, it would be blocked. And that's the key with having Grizzled Jarl. The stun should still go to Skullcrusher, and that's okay. It's baked into his kit here, right? So kind of keep going. There goes the stun. Perfect. It does land on Skullcrusher, which is excellent for us. Now remember, he's going to remove it from himself, but his cooldowns won't reduce. But Emic reduces our cooldown, so it shouldn't be an issue at all. There you go. We got the unkillable. Now we got our second attack here. And Skullcrusher uses his unkillable ability, I think maybe a turn early. So I'm going to have to make sure we're not doing that at the wrong time here. I want to make sure that that's actually the case. Oh, that is going to be at the wrong time, isn't it? Oh, okay. Let's see here. Because of the stun, this is the part I always forget. Because of the stun, it turns into a 4-turn cooldown, not a 3-turn cooldown. And so we can adjust really easily, though. I just bake in, let's retry. Okay, starting here on Nightmare, I recognize one thing. I did a fake run. I messed up. And I realized one thing is we're going to have to actually add in a delay for Skullcrusher for 1 turn. Because he's going to try to use his unkillable ability a little early. And with the stun, it actually turns his 3-turn cooldown into a 4-turn cooldown. And so the timing of it was off that I had in the calculator. So I need to do one more A1 here. This is going to work out perfectly anyway. It makes us unkillable. He'll put up the counter attack. You can see the block debuff from Grizzled Jarl there. That would have kept us affinity friendly. If we were on affinity clan boss, that would have blocked it. Now you can see everybody else has counterattack. The stun is guided towards Skullcrusher. He has unkillable on himself. He blocks the stun, no problem whatsoever. The trick, of course, and we could build them full damage, full everything, but the trick, of course, is that we're using unkillable abilities. Unkillable abilities means that everybody's taking damage along the way. So we really need him to take a lot of damage along the way too. So I try to build him as weak as possible. And in doing so, hopefully he'll lose damage as much or faster than everybody else, even though he does have that regen set on him. And that's going to be really important. But hopefully Ragnar will keep placing the leech and allowing our team to heal up. That's going to be pretty important as well. I don't know how well that's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that that'll happen. And hopefully Thalesia can extend it to make sure that it stays on everybody. These are the things that we have to worry about when we're doing this team here. And if Ragnar takes more damage too, he's gonna cycle through his skills a little bit. I don't know how much I need him to do that, but there you go. We got the stun going. It seems to be working really well now. The real trick is going to be when we really start to lose damage later on in the fight and everybody's down to 0. Can we heal up enough? Will we have leech up often enough? With the counterattack, there's a pretty good chance that we're going to have it on for the full fight, but it's never going to be 100%. So that's the kind of, you know, one of the things we have to look out for here. But otherwise, it looks like this is going to run really smoothly here, really well. One of the advantages of Skull Crusher is by putting counterattack on everybody else, he becomes the desirable stun target for the clan boss, because he doesn't have that buff that we, you know, that the clan boss likes to avoid. So hopefully this will work really fine. And of course the taunt falls off Emic, takes enough turns where that's not going to be an issue. And it's kind of it's really a good thing in this kind of a comp for us, even if it's not amazing in all the other ones. But yeah, as we can see, it's working really fine, getting good damage, we're being consistent. Everybody seems to be healing up along the way. So we'll let this run a little bit here and see where we get to. In the meantime, why don't I show you guys the stats of the champions, and then we'll come back and hopefully we'll still be alive and we can actually get to 50 turns on this run. Well, we might as well start with Emic. He's going 247 speed. It's right in that wheelhouse between 246 and 248. And he's got crit rate, crit damage. More importantly, he's got regen and immortal gear on. That's what we want. You'll also notice on the masteries that he has on the defensive mastery that's going to help with his healing, rejuvenation. That's something that Skull Crusher doesn't, and that's going to be the difference between one getting stunned and the other not. And then we have Grizzled Jarl. It does look like I put him in a lifesteal set, which was pretty smart, I would say, for me. That's definitely going to help him with his healing. It means we don't have to rely on the leech, although it did seem to stay up for the entirety of the fight, which worked out great for us. But we have him going the slowest on the team. That's going to make sure that when he places that block debuff, going to stay on everybody, or the affinity debuffs. Obviously, we're not going against affinity, so it doesn't really matter. But if we were, we would be affinity friendly as a result. Obviously I built him for damage. He can hit very hard, so he's kind of a nice champion to bring in for this. As proof the leech stayed on, we have Ragnar, who didn't have any lifesteal on, so he definitely needed that leech to be able to stay alive. We have him going the fastest right now, and that's helpful because he places the decreased defense in the weekend. So he goes first and does that. Everybody else benefits from afterwards. Right, so he's going to be doing a lot of work for us. Overshot the crit rate a bit, but that's not important. You don't have to pay attention to those details. The important thing is we have enough accuracy to land our debuffs, we're at the right speed, and we're hitting hard. We have Thalesia here also in lifesteal set, so I don't have to worry about her healing. One thing you'll notice, all these people pretty much are in defensive masteries, get some free counterattacks in, an easy way to up your damage. But she's going in the middle range, right? 175 speed, good crit rate, good crit damage, plenty of accuracy to land her debuffs. That's what we're looking for. And then we have Skull Crusher, right? We've got the regen gear, we've got the immortal gear, both of which are key to making sure we beat that 16% HP threshold so that we become a viable stun target even when, you know, we're barely above dead. Even with the unkillable ability on us, so this clan boss doesn't avoid us. That's going to be crucial. But obviously I don't need much else than that. So we don't have a ring, we don't have the boots leveled at all, we only have half the masteries. The key is we want to be as vulnerable as possible. The sooner that we go low in our HP, the more reliable we are to, you know, not only continue to stay down, but to take that stun and be the lowest HP on the team. That's crucial to making this work. You may be wondering why we're using leech if we don't want Skull Crusher to heal up. Well, it works out really well because his unkillable ability isn't actually an attack. That means while everybody else is attacking and healing up, he won't. He's only going to heal from his base gear, and that's going to be enough, which is fantastic for us. It really works out well. But if you're trying to use somebody else in that slot and they do have an attack, you're not going to be able to use leech. This is one of the issues when I'm running this with Taurus instead, we run into that issue where we can't use leech because he actually has an attack before the stun happens. You'll see it in that video, but needless to say, this works really well because his kit is the way it is. And there you have it. I don't know if you caught that, the stun actually went to Ragnar, and the problem is Skull Crusher tried to heal from 0 and he didn't have enough HP. He needs to be over 16%. that little bit extra wasn't enough. So regen set by itself won't be enough. We're gonna have to toss an immortal set on him in addition to that in order to make this work. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead. You guys have seen plenty of this run. You can see how it can work. I'm gonna go ahead, toss an immortal piece on Skull Crusher, let it run 50 turns and show you guys the damage. There you go, 50 turns, 42 million damage, easy 2-key. Maybe not easy, but a very solid 2-key damage team. So you can see this works. I mean, it definitely can work using Skull Crusher with Emic, but it does take some finagling, right? You gotta get your gear sets, get your champ set, and make the synergy really work and happen here. But it's definitely something that's very doable. Obviously there's going to be some tricks as far as getting the speeds right for Ultra Nightmare versus Nightmare, especially when using a champion like Grizzled Jarl. This is why using Doom Priest is usually the preferred method to go about this. But you can see it works really well. And there's a variety of champions that you can use to do this. If you want to use, and this is the best part about Emic, 4-turn cooldowns are basically the same as 3-turn cooldowns. So you have a Sepulchre Sentinel instead, you can use it. Mausoleum Mage, sure. Grizzled Jarl, sure. All these kind of champions can be used. And then you can also bring in all sorts of champions you wouldn't normally bring in, like Krilo would be a great option. Farrak and the Fat, all their 4-turn cooldowns are now on 3-turn cooldowns, which makes it a lot easier to build your champions as well. You do have to be careful. Skull Crusher's Red Affinity. Don't use this against Spirit, right? It's going to be, or don't use it against Blue Affinity, right? Don't use it against Blue. It won't work. The stun target's not going to go where you want it. You're going to have to bring in somebody else. Options are like Gnarlhorn, Hatchet, what's it called? Hatchet Slayer or something like that. Taurus. There's a few champions out there that do have unkillable abilities. I do recommend trying to give them a shot. But Skull Crusher is definitely not going to be the only one that you can utilize for this, but he's going to be great for a lot of the content for sure. And obviously, one of the big things with this, because there are various speeds and they do change the way the comp works, make sure to test it in the calculator before you build it. Make sure you test it on Nightmare. Make sure you test it on Nightmare Spirit. Make sure you test it on Ultra Nightmare Spirit. And chances are you're probably going to have to substitute a champion in to make sure the speeds work if you're going to use somebody like a Grizzled Jarl for your team. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's a little bit different using a 2-turn block debuff champions versus a 1-turn, because it can stretch across. So even if the turn order isn't exactly the way you want it initially, it can get there. It makes it a lot easier to build things with the same speeds. But this is why Grizzled Jarl can be a little bit trickier than some, but boy, it makes it accessible, doesn't it? So pretty solid. Anyway, guys, that's the video for today. Hopefully this opened up your eyes to some uses that Emic's going to have. He's going to be really, really good for people that are low level, mid level. Even if you're, if you're not 2-king Ultra Nightmare, you need an unkillable team, Emic's going to make a world of difference because there's a variety of ways to build teams with him. He's very, very versatile. Not the strongest champ. He's not going to build anything for end game players, but for mid-level players, or late game players that maybe, aren't have end game teams all the way around, he can be really, really positive for you. So hopefully you guys are getting them. Don't forget to subscribe. I always forget to say that. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell, guys. It's always a pleasure. Make sure to check out the website. If you want to build this team, it's the Slow Beating Trunkheart. Slow Beating Trunkheart. I think it's a clever name. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. If you guys come up with a better one, maybe I'll change it. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for sticking around. Until next we meet on the Deadwood Jedi.